So what about Lisanurlan then? What was it like growing up in Lisanurlan?
Well, I was born in 1938. The family had moved to Lisanurlan in 1932 when my father, when we got that house out in Lisanurlan, which was about 1.5 miles from Longford, you see. Now, I don't have all that many memories of Lisanurlan because I was only 5 when we left, you see. But I do have a few, you know. And I don't know how we all managed in Lisanurlan because it must have been an enormous family there. So at that stage, there must have been 12 people in the house, at least, you know. So later on, I saw it maybe 60 years afterwards, and I don't know, there was only about 3 bedrooms. So how they managed at night time, I don't know, really, you know.
Yeah. Although that bedroom that you showed me was fairly big room. You were saying that I'd thrown the ball across the room.
But you see, my father had to have his own bedroom, always, you know. And that left that there was only 2 bedrooms left, you know. They must have used something downstairs as well. But they must, you know. I didn't go to school when I was in Lisanurlan, and the house was owned by the Vines, and he also owned a farm all round about it, and they used to have cattle on the land. But we had the house and we had the use of the farmyard. My mother used to keep hens there, so she used. And I can remember her saying, choo, 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 and the hens all running like mad across the yard to take off all the goodies that she was throwing at them, you see. Now, there was a vicious cock in Lisanurlan as well there one time. And one time he jumped out and picked nations on the behind. So he did, you know. And that was the end of the cock. Mike Camel, a local person, he was commissioned to put down the cock, you see.
All right.
And that was the end of that poor cock, you see.
And was he eaten? Do you remember?
I don't know what happened to him afterwards, you know. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. There was also a dog called Rally. There was a big orchard associated with Lisanurlan, you see. And
I hope you're not going to tell about the end of...
unfortunately, boys from the town used to come out and they used to rob apples from the orchard, you see. And my mother probably didn't like that. So we got a dog called Rally, a big, it wasn't a greyhound, he was, what do you call those creatures at all? Collie dog, you see. But his collie dog used to be barking all night, and Tom was very studied for his examinations. So again, Tom decided that the dog had to go. We won't go into any grisly details, you know. No.
Yeah.
So anyway, one of my memories is looking out the kitchen window and seeing the cows of a neighbour called Ginty eating the clothes off the line. You see, the clothes were half down the cow's throat. You see, eating them up. And then I can remember Mr. Ginty coming up, all apologies to my mother, and offering her several bags of potatoes to compensate for the loss of the bedclothes. You know, he was all apologies, and she wasn't giving out to him either over it. You know. Okay, so the same Mr. Ginty was a peculiar person, very vicious kind of a man. He used to use the horsewhip on his son. You know, he was terrible. You know. And then when his son was getting to the age of 12, when he could stand up to the father, poor old son was drowned in a bog hole. Oh, it was terrible, you know. So anyway, let's talk about the Ginty. Let's tell about the Gintys as possible, you know. There were other people there as well, the family Powells as well, you know. And there was also an individual called Willie Caddo, you know. And as well as that, I remember looking out the window one time. I remember as well at what you call it, Christmas time, Stephen's Day, Randboys used to come around in lorries. And I can remember some Randboys dancing in the kitchen. There can't be too much space because only along with maids. Now I don't know how there was any space for them to dance in the kitchen because the kitchen was so small, but they were there, okay? Now probably my earliest memories of all was where I was climbing into a pram that was in the kitchen, you know, for a rest. And mother said, "What are you doing that? You're too big for that now," she said, you know. I was too old. I was too young to go to school anyway in Bryanstown National School. May have been, what do you call it, not may have, but Nacius and Phyllis and Edna went to Bryanston National School, but we knew we'd have to move out of there after a while, you see, because the house was owned by the Devine family. Now, my brother Paddy was married to Rosie Devine, so there wasn't any antagonism from the family, but we had to get out of it because they wanted that house for Michael Joe Devine.
Yeah.
So eventually we decided we would have to move, you see, and we moved into a place in Dublin Street. And I can remember he lent us various shifters and all that kind of to move our furniture away. I can remember going up the road and me sitting along with the driver, and we had a dog as well called Ranger. Ranger was running along the side behind the shifters and all the furniture movers, and Ranger killed his last rabbit in the ditch opposite the Gut Murray's. You see. Now, times are very cold out there. The weathers are very, very cold. You see icicles hanging from the windows in the winter time. And my mother used to say that if you got a cold in Lisanurlan, it would nearly kill you, which it would. It was so bad, you know. Also, there are a few other things as well that I can remember. I can remember skating on the ice outside of the house. And one time Leo was coming home with a big what do you call those wet and dry battery for the radio, and he slipped on the ice and the thing smashed all over the place, you know. It was blue murder over that, you know.
Do you remember Kevin been home?
No, I don't remember. I do remember Kevin, but I don't remember him in Lisanurlan. I can remember for a brief time in Dublin Street, all right, but not in Lisanurlan.
You don't remember being home when he was in uniform that time with the
Kevin
pictures?
was gone. Kevin must have left about I was born in 1938.
Yeah.
And Kevin must have left for the war about 1939 or 38.
Yeah, the photographs with him in uniform.
Yeah, but
you don't remember them.
I remember Tom and Leo being dressed up. They used to have the soldiers. They were used to train people in the barracks, you know, to be soldiers in case the Germans ever invaded, you know. And I remember Leo and Kevin out with rifles posing for a photograph in the yard, you know.
Oh.
So we can. Also, I heard a story from my mother about my father standing at the window of the front room, looking at the farmers bringing their pigs to market in the town. You see, and my father would stand there and with hands in his pocket, and he said, "God," he said, "the poor unfortunate pigs," he said, "going off to be slaughtered." He said, you know. So a few days afterwards, after one of these occasions, my mother made sure that she got a meal of bacon from my father, you know. She gave him plenty of bacon, and she also asked him, "Did you like all that? Would you like some more?" "Yes," he said, you know. And then she said, "That was a poor pig," she said, "went in there," you know. She said, you know. So my father was very amused over that. But I can't remember. We did have a radio, all right, but it was a very complicated thing. It was a cold and a dry battery. And I can remember as well that upstairs we didn't have any electricity. We only had electricity downstairs. And I can't remember. We still have a candle holder that we would have used in those times. But we had electricity downstairs. But a lot of people didn't have electricity in the area. So they hadn't, you know. As well as that, they had to go down and get water out of the well that they had, you know. And as well as that, we must have displayed a certain amount of resistance to the Devine family about leaving the place, you see, Lisanurlan and moving someplace else. Because at one stage, Frank Devine said, "Wonder Mr. Branigan wouldn't leave that house now and leave it to Michael Joe." And Harry Curley said, isn't Mr. Branigan more just as much entitled to it as Michael Joe is? Which wasn't a very sensible thing to say, really, you know. So anyway, my mother used to say that the Devines didn't make any attempt to kill any of the rats or the mice in the yard, in the hope that we would leave the place. You see, so we would. Okay. Now there was also a story told in the family. I can remember it happening. They had an orchard there, a magnificent orchard, and when we were leaving, Michael Joe more or less said, oh, you can come out, help yourself to any of the apples in the orchard if you want and all that, you know. And Maeve went out to the orchard afterwards when we were living in Dublin Street to help herself to a few apples. And Mamie, Matthew Joe's wife, came out and she had to face with Maeve. Maeve was very upset about it all.
These things happen.
You know. But otherwise, I can't remember where we slept because I went back to that place afterwards and I couldn't remember any of it except the kitchen. And the kitchen was very small. You know?
It was very small.
Very
I saw
small,
it
yeah.
myself.
But I thought it was big at the time, you know.
Tom showed me around.
Yeah,
And,
but that's really all I can remember about Lisanurlan. It was very, very cold in the winter. And as well as that, they had, there was a what's called a fairy fort up at the field of the back of Lisanurlan. And I can remember going up there and being amazed how well preserved it was. You see? I remember sitting there or standing there with Tom and watching a big hare running down the field. H-A-R-E, a hare, you know.
Yeah.
So that was my memories of Lisanurlan, you know. But my mother always said that she was happiest of all in Lisanurlan. And if she ever dreamed of anything, it was always she always dreamt she was back in Lisanurlan again, you know. That's really all, no.
Dad remembered it.
Yeah.
He told me about it a little bit.
Mm.
He remembered going on a donkey through the orchard and getting caught on a branch of one of the apple trees and getting caught and hanging on the branch. The donkey knew exactly what to do.
There was one time as well, my mother got caught in some kind of a fence, or actually a ditch in the orchard. Actually, a branch of a tree had scraped against her eye, you see, and I was getting worse. But nobody thought it was important. And Paddy came home on leave from the army, and he saw her eye in the bad state that it was. So he said, "You better get in there, have that eye looked at straight away." He said, my mother went in, and it was a little bit too late because she lost most of the sight of the eye because of that. You know, if you had some kind of a branch had scraped against her eyelid, you know, and caused a lot of damage there. So my mother only had full sight in one eye from then on, but very, very limited sight in the other eye, you know. That was all really I can think about Lisanurlan, you know. But it's in the family memory, it was supposed to be an idyllic place altogether, and the neighbours are all very friendly there. Now, as well as that, when we went to Lisanurlan first, there was a thing in the country then called stations, where it was a mass station. A mass would be said every month or so in a house in the parish, and all the neighbours come along to the mass, you see. And my mother and father never heard about this before, and suddenly our name was announced from the pulpit in the cathedral. Pulpit mass next whatever day it was in Branigan in Lisanurlan. We didn't know what it was, but we hadn't much furniture of any quality in the house, you know, at that time, you know, because we weren't very well off. So we went in and cancelled that thing, you see. And my mother always imagined afterwards that there was some kind of antagonism between the clergy and herself because they had cancelled the mass. I don't know whether it's true or not, but I don't know really, you know. I mean, Father used to get the bus in sometimes as well to work and all that, you know. And one time he was coming out of Lisanurlan in the bus, and Paddy actually was on the railway bridge there, you see. And Paddy was missing from school. So my father accosted him later on. "What were you doing at the railway bridge?" He said, "Well, 3 o'clock. He said, I was sent out looking for a fella that was mitching." He said, you know. So that was really all, you know. That was really all. But that was my memories of Lisanurlan. And but we always went out there afterwards around that area, and we always called it our road. That road out to Lisanurlan. It was our road, you see. And when my mother and father died, all the older libraries from Lisanurlan came to the funeral. These days, you know. Also, that's my memories of Lisanurlan now, I'm afraid, you know. Can't think of anything else because I was only 5 when I left, you see.
It was a beautiful house. I was glad I was able to go out and see it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was owned by a chap called Aiken. He was there before that house was built, you know. And what do you call them? The Ryan's took it over and built a house then, you know. It was called Lisanurlan House, it was called, you know.
Right.
And my mother and father loved that house, so they did, you know. That's it. Okay?
Very good, thank you.